All right. Time for a story. Let me tell you all about this guy. So sly. Gather on my children. Let me tell you about this man who stole a plane from the USA and crashed in my Bahama land. He's smooth as silk and white like milk and favor Mr. Peter Pan. And every time he did the crime, he slept out policeman and man. They call him the Barefoot Bandit. This boy will leave you stranded. Miss, don't leave your car on. You come back, girl, and I'll be gone. They call him the Barefoot Bandit. This boy don't use no shoes. They call him the Barefoot Bandit. All over the evening news. Barefoot. He barefoot. He barefoot.
Chap known as the Barefoot Bandit has been arrested in the Bahamas. Colton Harris-Moore achieved fame and notoriety in the United States after absconding from a juvenile detention centre in 2008. He then went to live rough in the woods, and police say he was responsible for more than 50 burglaries, as well as stealing cars, boats and planes. He committed many of his crimes while shoeless, hence the name the Barefoot Bandit, and he allegedly left chalk footprints as a calling card. His thousands of fans, however, regarded him as a latter-day Robin Hood.
Other people, though, take a dimmer view. They're glad to see the back of Colton Harris-Moore, and nowhere more so than in the Seattle region, where he began his crime spree. Jennifer Sullivan is covering the story for the Seattle Times.
He's been breaking into houses. He's been stealing airplanes. He's allegedly been stealing luxury vehicles. And most recently, he turned into a bit of a Robin Hood by leaving money at a veterinary clinic in Oregon.
How did he get to be in the Bahamas, of all places? This is a kid from Seattle. He's blazed quite a trail, hasn't he?
Yes, he's been, for the last few months, investigated for stealing airplanes and flying from the Midwest to the Bahamas.
Takes an amazing amount of gall, one would imagine, if nothing else. How on earth has he been able to fly a plane across the United States without any flying lessons?
According to law enforcement, he's been reading a lot of manuals and looking up flying tips online.
And that has gained him quite a following, hasn't it? The fact that he's an anti-establishment figure and he's cocked a snook at the authorities.
Exactly, and he has more than 60,000 fans on Facebook. He has websites dedicated to him, and according to his mother, they have a book deal in the works.
So a star of the internet, a sort of latter-day Jesse James character. Ron Callari is an internet expert. I asked him what he makes of the story.
I think why social media is so adept at becoming involved with these types of stories is because they're like loose ends that could be put together very quickly, particularly if you're on Twitter and Facebook and some of the other major social networks. It's easy to follow something like this, where in the past you had to wait for the traditional media to represent the story.
So it's a story really that's constantly breaking. There's always a new twist to it.
Yeah, and you can become part of the story. I mean, you can interact. There's people that have communicated with this gentleman over the course of the last 2.5 years. We just learned about him in the last 3 or 4 or 5 days, but this has been going on for 2.5 years. And a lot of people have been following him for that length of time. So I think it's an opportunity for us to become part of the story, to integrate with the story that makes it so appealing.
So in other words, people sort of want a piece of the action vicariously, really?
I think so. I think you want to live through what others are doing, even if it's something that you wouldn't do yourself. Obviously, this kid has committed crimes, and that's not your normal Joe that's going to be doing the activities that he's been involved with. But you're kind of like pulling for him. Almost like in the Wild Wild West, with Jesse James and some of the, characters back then, even though they were murderers and held up banks and whatever, you kind of were like pulling for them because they were able to accomplish things even though they were outside of the boundaries.
So, on the one hand, you've got somebody who's putting a finger up to authority on the one hand, and as far as we know, he has not killed anybody, has not done those things, not stepped over that kind of line. I suppose it's automatic, isn't it, as well, that there's going to be a divergence of opinion between the people who are doing things like on Twitter and that kind of thing, as opposed to the people who've lived in the neighbourhood and been troubled by this guy.
Exactly. And there's been a lot of stories about that, people that actually were robbed, people that found them naked in their bedrooms when they came home from a vacation or whatever. Yeah, those individuals obviously are, in a different situation, and then they're not going to be looking at this the way we're talking about this today. But I mean, the mere fact that somebody wrote a song, a ballad about him, and put it on YouTube, people have been posting blogs. The Facebook followers have, gone up to 50,000 and still growing even to this point in time. And at this juncture, I mean, his mother has been involved with a lawyer to find out how she could proceed with a book deal and a movie deal.
I was going to talk about his mother because she says that she's proud of what he's done and all that kind of. She's fully. It's like she says, almost. I fully support my son in his career, which is being a criminal.
Yeah, and she wants to capitalize, and this will probably happen because she's allowed to proceed with something like this. If he goes into a court trial or something of that nature, I think the legal framework in the United States would not allow him to benefit.
But Mum could be laughing all the way to the bank.
Exactly. Which is kind of ironic when you think about it.
Certainly one way of putting it. That's Ron Callari on the life and times of Colton Harris-Moore.
All right. Time for a story. Let me tell you all about this guy. So fly. Gather on my children. Let me tell you about this man who stole a plane from the USA and crashed in my Bahama land. He's smooth as silk and white like milk in favor Mr. Peter Pan. And every time he did the crime, he slept out policeman and man. They call him the Barefoot Bandit. This boy will leave you stranded. Miss, don't leave your